We map fields together between forms. So if the customer is filling out two forms, they only have to answer questions once. And if, fields are required, we make them required. And if you want to get a phone number, we make sure the person doesn't put in an email address. It's all the simple stuff that helps construct a complete and legible and readable submission. And then we integrate e-signature into that as well. So by the time the agent gets the submission back, they're feeling confident that it is complete, that it's accurate, that it's been signed, and that it's ready to go to market.
This episode of the Insurance Stream podcast is sponsored by Viva Virtual Assistants. With Viva, you can save over 60% of the cost of hiring a full-time employee. Not to mention, employees are impossible to find right now. Viva makes the whole process easy and affordable with college-educated, bilingual virtual assistants that operate in the convenient central time zone. Go to vivavs.com and see why hundreds of insurance agencies across the United States have chosen Viva for their administrative staffing needs. Again, that's vivavs.com. All right, I'm here with Jason Keck. He is with Broker Buddha. We are so excited to have you guys on. Appreciate your time today. And we talked a little bit about it before, but let's back up and get a history on Broker Buddha, because you guys are basically all about simplifying the agent's life, right? Making everything easy. Is that where the Buddha came from?
100%. Yeah. The name comes out of a couple of places. One, kind of a desire to speak to what we do for our clients, which is to really simplify their lives. Two is obviously speak to the audience. So broker in the name kind of speaks to that. And then, you want it to be memorable. And so having alliteration and a little bit of kind of a provocative component to the name, right? Talking about Buddhism in insurance and business is always a little like, what? Right.
Yeah,
and the result's been that the brand recognition is extraordinary. So that's just really a little bit of background behind
it. Are you
the name.
Buddhist?
Yeah. I'm not a Buddhist, although I've learned a lot more about Buddhism over the last 5 years than I ever thought I would, and I think it's
right there.
A lot. No kidding. Look at you, man.
Yeah, got the full, like, it's a 3/4 arm tag. Got a temple up at the top. I got the Buddha.
It's hot.
But so it's I'm not Buddhist either. People ask me that all the time. It's like, and my answer is always, I wish that I could be Buddhist, because like
man.
To be like those guys someday. But I also
there's so much peace and serenity in these, right? It's just like so much focus on the presence, right? The present, and less, not stressing about the future or freaking out about the past. It's just like live in the moment, focus on what's important to you and enjoy life. So
I love it. It's I've probably read more books on Buddhism and by abbots and stuff like that than some Buddhists have. But again, I wish I could do that. It's just, I don't know, maybe next time. So let's walk through, how did this get started? Give me the background on you and like what led to, oh my gosh, there's a problem and we fix it.
I wish I could take all the credit. But I'll give you quick background on me and sort of how Broker Buddha came to being. But my background is not in insurance. 25 years in technology. 10 of those with large corporates. So in my 20s, I worked at Accenture and Nextel and kind of learned about just how businesses run and, kind of started building a career in the kind of B2B space. Then in my 30s, I joined an early stage startup called Shazam, which was somewhat unknown at the time, but quickly became one of the fastest growing digital brands of the decade, featured on the iPhone and now owned by Apple. I spent some time at Tumblr and kind of in the mobile app world. But I really just loved early stage businesses. And after moving to New York, I started getting in touch with New York City incubators. And there's one here called Interplay, who had been incubating a digital agency called Founder Shield. And Founder Shield was a bunch of startup guys who thought, hey, buying insurance when I was a startup was a real pain in the ass. So why don't we go start a business to sell insurance to startups? And they quickly discovered that there were just not really any good tools for putting applications online and filling out forms and doing all the administrative stuff that insurance agents had to do. And so they started building, go figure, online web forms for applications, and quickly became one of the fastest growing agencies in the country. And the incubator, the guys who ran the incubator were like, "That's a good idea. Why don't we build some software like those guys and see if we can sell it to the rest of the insurance agencies in the country?" And that was the genesis behind Broker Buddha. And we sort of connected around the time that was happening. They asked me to be a co-founder and the CEO, and that was 5 years ago. So that's how we got the business off the ground.
That's awesome. So in a we don't know if we don't think we hammered this home very much. So you guys will take any of your paper applications and stuff like that, and you like digitize the whole process and submit out to like a bunch of different places for quotes. Is that kind of the 10 words or less pitch?
We focus more on the data capture piece. So yes, we take paper applications. Yes, we convert them into online web forms, and yes, we let the agent sort of combine those together into, let's say, a submission request from the customer. And we build all the workflow around that part of the process. So we map fields together between forms. So if the customer is filling out 2 forms, they only have to answer questions once. And if fields are required, we make them required. And if you want to get a phone number, we make sure the person doesn't put in an email address. It's all the simple stuff that helps construct a complete and legible and readable submission. And then we integrate e-signature into that as well. So by the time the agent gets the submission back, they're feeling confident that it is complete, that it's accurate, that it's been signed, and that it's ready to go to market. And then we do provide some tools for kind of a multi-carrier submission, primarily through email now, although we just signed up a partnership to be able to deliver those digitally as well.
Okay. What companies are you guys working with on submitting those apps?
And submitting the app. So we have digitized over 10,000 carrier applications from probably 500 different carriers.
These are mostly like supplemental apps, right?
Mostly supplemental apps. That's right. There's probably 100 Accord forms.
Are those digitized too? Got it.
So there's only about 100 Accords that really matter. We've got those digitized.
Sure.
And then it's all the carrier supplementals. We also find that a lot of the more mature agencies have built out pretty standardized either intake forms or renewal questionnaires that are typically on paper or PDF or Excel. And so we will convert those into smart forms as well to streamline either the new client intake or the renewal process. And then we just signed a partnership with a company yet to be announced, but we're going to have access to about 50 different carrier digital products that we could turn on and off for any broker at any time.
That's pretty sweet. So carriers that you guys could, so like I can send this to my client, it sounds like, or I could fill it out myself for my client, right?
That's right.
And then so the carriers that, because I get the applications back within your Broker Buddha ecosystem, and then am I submitting it from your page to these different carriers?
Yeah. So as an agent, if you're logged into our platform, we give you like a little workflow to select all the different carriers you want to send it to.
Right.
And for the ones that have APIs, we'll be able to deliver it digitally to them. And for the ones that have that don't, then we have a sort of underwriter contact list that you can access for sending it directly to the underwriter.
Sweet.
And on the carrier side, it's 36 MGAs, 20 different lines of business, and almost 100 products.
Nice. So 36 MGAs. I mean, people like Google, like, where can I submit this trucking risk, right? You got a place for truckers?
We digitally no, but we know
that's fine. That doesn't mean anything, right? Because truckers is such a tough class. So give me a class where like you're like, man, we'll knock this out of the park for you. What's an example of like one of your guys' hot classes that you come across?
So we're less class specific. We're actually line of business, size of business, and class of business agnostic, which means that it really depends on the agency. So if the agency wants to use this for trucking, we've got trucking forms. If agencies want to use this for contractors, we got contractor forms. the carrier appetites are frankly just out of our control.
Right. For sure.
But
so these 36 MGAs, I mean, they probably have thousands of class codes that they quote, I'm sure. But so
they're I would say they're more line of business specific. So they come to us and say, hey, we've got cyber, or we've got GL, or we've got BOP. And then within that, it really just depends on each carrier and MGA has their own appetite for different classes. So
for sure. So, and that's so interesting fact here. You and I talked a little bit before we started recording about how, we had a retail agency before and then, acquired and stuff like that. It was a pretty decent sized operation when it got acquired. We actually worked with CRC. I don't know. They're probably one of the ones that you guys work with. And we worked on, so we had, there's a Vila app and then a tree supplemental. Cause we did contractors, Vila app, a tree supplemental. And then there was one other one, but those three forms that we digitized, we had our IT team working with, the CRC to like what questions are, it's a process, right? And it's not cheap. I think we spent, this is 8 years ago, nine years ago, maybe 10 years ago, we spent like $5,000 at the time for 3 pages or 3 forms to digitize those. So what are we looking at for a cost on Broker Buddha? I'm guessing it's not,
it's a lot cheaper than that. I mean, that's part of our secret sauce is we've built out the infrastructure to be able to take a PDF and turn it into a web form really fast.
That's like pretty cool.
Days, not months. And so for us, we can do that quickly, but then we can publish that form out to every agency on the platform. So you can almost think of it as like a publishing platform for supplementals is one way of looking at it. And we're starting to get carriers coming to us to say, oh, what do our forms look like on your platform? And can we make them work better and look better? And, and that's exciting for us because, ultimately these are not our forms. We're just sort of stewarding them out to the industry. And, the carriers, if they want to get the best submissions possible, they can come in and, add the tooltips and add the necessary logic to kind of streamline the submission process. So
that's really, really cool. So what's the cost to come to Broker Buddha if I'm an agent and I'm looking to get signed up?
Yeah, so we have some setup fees and we have some licensing fees. We generally engage with agencies over a 2-year period because there's a process to get their people and data onto the platform. The pricing, depends on the size of the agency and the number of subscriptions you buy, but it's less than Salesforce is on a per monthly basis. So not terribly expensive. But the value it creates in terms of the
how many staff hours are you saving, right?
It's not just the staff hours. Frankly, a lot of people come to us because they're just embarrassed about sending forms to their clients. It's just like we're like, I tell people that like my doctor's office is more advanced than most of the agencies that we work with, right? Like I can when I go to the doctor, I get an email 2 days before. I can self-register online, and when I show up, like I'm in, and insurance is totally different. So, so really 2 key value props for Broker Buddha. Number 1 is just helping agencies deliver their brand promise to their clients in an online environment, which is a very, very challenging thing to do. Most agencies just aren't great at digital. And then second is all the efficiencies they get from doing that are just phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do folks go? BrokerBuddha.com?
Yeah, BrokerBuddha.com. Come to the website, contact us there. You can schedule a demo with our team. We'll walk you through how it works. We'll take you through some case studies. And most people see it and they're like, wow, like there's usually like this kind of like blank stare, like wow, like because they realize that this is what they do every day,
right?
And then they see it like possible, like without using emails and phone calls, and they're just like there's a lot of deer in the headlights. Like okay, it's exciting.
Yes,
what's good is that cool. the people who use it are like, wow, this is going to be awesome for me. But then the agencies and the owners realize like how much efficiency it creates and how much access to data it gives them that they've never had before, because historically all that data just lives on the form and the PDF and you really can't get access to it. So,
yeah, no, that makes sense. Last question.
Yeah, sure.
Podcast. Do you do a podcast? Because you got like a cool get up there. I have. You're the first interview I've had that's had that nice of a setup.
I do. Yeah, I started a podcast mid-pandemic, much like others. I didn't think I would, but then I realized A, how simple it was, and B, how powerful it can be. The show is called The Enlightened Agent, and the first series was focused on telling this story of insurance agents who, at least before I got into the industry, when I thought insurance agent, I thought, slimy sales guy. That's like the first thing that comes to mind. And then I got into the industry and I realized that, like, wow, there's some really intelligent people doing some really high value stuff here. And I don't think their stories are well told. So that was the first series. And then this year I launched a series focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the industry, because there's a, I would say, a pretty established perspective that it's fairly, most of the leaders are kind of white male executives. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, white male executive. So we got to do something to change the conversation here. Yeah. And so I brought on initially a bunch of women and people of color in leadership roles to talk about what it was like and how they got there. And then I also started bringing on, other white male leaders to talk about what they were doing to try to drive change. And it's been incredibly rewarding.
That's really cool. Name of the podcast one more time.
It's called The Enlightened Agent.
Okay. I'm going to write that down. Check it out. Appreciate it. Well, Jason, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And I'd encourage everybody to go to brokerbuddha.com. The link will be in the comments or in the description of this podcast. And we appreciate you coming on with us.
Abe, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on the show. And thanks for letting me tell the story. Appreciate you getting the word out.
Likewise. Thank you so much.